Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this reconvened planning meeting of the Melton Borough Council. For clarity, this meeting is a continuation of the meeting that was held on the 31st of August that we unfortunately had to suspend. I am Councillor Alan Thwaites, Chair of Planning, and as normal, I just need to go through some housekeeping. In the event of having to evacuate the council chamber, please leave by one of the 6 emergency exits around the sides of the chamber. Please assemble at the far side of the front car park nearest to the park entrance. Officers will be on hand to assist anyone who needs any assistance. Please put your phones on silent during this meeting, and we will be using the audio-visual system this evening, and the meeting will also be streamed live on YouTube. As this is an adjourned item, only members who were present before are able to take part tonight. Unfortunately, Councillor Chris Evans is unable to attend tonight, but that was the only absence. Before the recap, I would like to also state that some members have been contacted directly by the applicant, which is an unusual situation because of the suspension, and they've had the opportunity to do that. Normally, we'd only be able to discuss anything if I requested it, which I didn't. But on reflection and advice from legal, there was nothing new in that communication, and therefore members can actually disregard the email that they received. There was only one part in it, which was a comment about appeal, which is not a material planning matter. And whilst we also need to actually make sure that we are robust in all of our decisions and the things that we put forward, that shouldn't be a material condition. Oh, now, well, sorry, no, there's one other thing I just needed to say. Because of the emergencies the other night, I'd really want to publicly thank Tom, Sarah, and Siggy Atherton, who's actually in the public gallery this evening, for their actions on the last meeting, in the help of Jim, who I'm really pleased to say is back with us tonight. So to move the meeting forward, I'll now hand over to Sarah to the point where we were when we ended the meeting, where Sarah was going to clarify the conditions that we'd talked about. Sarah?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so where we recall picking up or where the meeting finished from was Councillor Mason had tabled some reasons for refusal alongside policies that he considered were applicable. We were questioning at that point as to getting into the detail of the harm. I believe that had been seconded by Councillor Allnutt. So we've taken the opportunity over the last couple of days to go away and work those details up into reasons for refusal, essentially in a kind of planning speak, to get those together. And I just wanted to run through those with you. We've also taken the opportunity to have a look at some appeal decisions recently, just to give you some ideas, I suppose, as to the weight that can be given to those appeal decisions and the reasons for refusal that have been put forward. So if it's okay with the Chair, I'll run through those now. Thank you. Okay, yeah, I will take it nice and slowly. Okay, so the first reason for refusal was based on the use of the best and most versatile agricultural land. So the wording proposed is the proposal seeks to remove grade 2 and 3A best and most versatile land from food production, which in the opinion of the local planning authority has not been adequately substantiated. The harm caused by the loss of best and most versatile land does not outweigh the climate change benefits of the proposal, contrary to the overall aims and objectives of policies SS1 and E10, Part 10 of the Melton Local Plan, the NPPF paragraph 174, and policy 3, Part 4, and policy 9, Part 4D of the adopted Bottisford Neighbourhood Plan. So in respect of that particular reason for refusal, members are reminded to consider that the proposed use is temporary and the land would be returned to its current use at the end of the development period. There have been many recent appeal decisions relating to the best and most versatile agricultural land. Inspectors have been giving significant weight to the temporary placement of the solar panels on the land, the soil being minimally disturbed and able to rest, and the fact that the grazing of the land and the grading of the land does not change. The land can still be used for some agricultural purposes through sheep grazing. You'll be aware that solar farms need a large area of land close to a good grid connection. This land is 93% grade 3B land, which is not the best and most versatile agricultural land. Inspectors in very similar situations have recently allowed appeals in very similar circumstances. Appeals have also dealt with the issue of food security, noting that there are no national or local policies, guidance or strategies that relate to food security and production. Inspectors have found that the proposed use of land as solar farms would not be detrimental to the nation's food security. I would therefore strongly advise you that, in my professional opinion, this reason for refusal would not stand up to the scrutiny that would be placed upon it at appeal. The second reason for refusal proposed was based on the cumulative impact. So the wording that we have proposed here is: this proposal, when considered cumulatively with other permitted and operational schemes within 30 square kilometres of the site, and we've listed those, which is the 49.9 megawatt site land east of Jericho Covert, 12.4 megawatt site Lodge Farm Long Hedge Lane, 49.9 megawatt farm land south of the A1 Foston bypass, and the 10 megawatt land site south of the railway line and east of Station Road, Elton. Those would result in an unacceptable cumulative impact on the landscape, where swathes of panels would be visible within a vista which could not be adequately mitigated. There would be a disproportionate effect of several sites within a small area, with solar panels covering approximately 10% of the identified area. The proposal is therefore considered to have an unacceptable adverse impact on the Vale of Beaver's sense of place and local distinctiveness, contrary to policies SS1, EN1 and D1 of the Melton Local Plan, paragraph 174 of the NPPF and the Bottisford Neighbourhood Plan Policy 9. Interestingly, in respect of this proposed reason for refusal, a recent appeal decision dealing with cumulative impacts, the inspector found that as the appeal scheme was actually larger than ones that were previously approved by that same authority, it would provide greater benefits in terms of renewable energy. That site was actually in the green belt, and ultimately that appeal was allowed. Again, it is my professional opinion that the cumulative impacts as described within that proposed reason for refusal would not stand up to the scrutiny of an appeal hearing or inquiry in this case. The third reason for refusal proposed was relating to the public rights of way around the site, and the proposed wording is: in the opinion of the local planning authority, the amenity of the public utilising the many rights of way which run through and adjacent to the site would be harmed by the substantial impact and effect of a large-scale solar installation. The ability of residents and visitors to the area using the footpaths to appreciate and enjoy the landscape character would be diminished and adversely impacted by the proposed development, creating corridor effects limiting the appreciation of the wider landscape, which also impacts upon key views as defined within the Bottisford Neighbourhood Plan. The quality of the natural environment is highly valued by residents and visitors to the area, particularly for the long views and openness. The proposal is therefore contrary to the Melton Local Plan Policy EN1, the Bottisford Neighbourhood Plan Policy 2, Parts 1 and 5, and Policy 9, Part 4A. Again, in respect of this particular reason for refusal, further recent appeal decisions have weighed up the impact of solar farms on the users of public rights of way, specifically talking about channelling effects between and next to hedgerows where footpaths run adjacent to perimeter fencing. In both cases, the appeals were allowed due to the substantial benefit of the solar farm in generating renewable energy. It is therefore again my professional opinion that the harms identified by members are outweighed by the provision of renewable energy as set out in the officer's report. Officers consider it highly unlikely that this reason for refusal would stand up to tested appeal. The fourth and final reason for refusal, respect of heritage, and the proposed wording is: In the opinion of the local planning authority, the proposal would result in an unacceptable impact on the setting of the heritage assets in the vicinity of the proposal, including but not limited to Grade 1 listed Belvoir Castle and its registered park and garden, 2 Grade 2 star listed buildings and 3 scheduled monuments, which cannot be adequately mitigated. The proposal is considered to damage the setting and the appreciation of the heritage assets and their appreciation in the landscape, which should be considered as a wider vista in the context of Belvoir Castle and the Vale of Belvoir. The benefits in reducing carbon emissions are therefore not considered to outweigh the harm to the heritage assets. The proposal is therefore considered to be contrary to policies SS1, EN1, EN10, EN13 and D1 of the Melton Local Plan, and Bottisford Neighbourhood Plan Policy 9. The final commentary I would offer on this particular reason for refusal is that appeals relating to heritage aspects note that much of the impact would be reversed once the solar farm is decommissioned. However, during the course of the solar farm being in operation, its impacts would be mitigated by landscaping. The inspector observes that the proposals would contribute to meeting the shortfall in renewable energy and make an early and significant contribution to meeting the country's 2050 net zero target. This particular appeal site was only 22 hectares in site, but albeit a 45 megawatt scheme. It remains officer's opinion that insufficient harm has been identified to justify a reason for refusal on heritage aspects as detailed in the report. It is not considered that this reason for refusal would be upheld at appeal. Finally, members are reminded that officers have recommended approval for the reasons set out in the report. Members should consider the use of conditions wherever possible before resorting to refusing a development. Whilst some harms have been identified, the benefits are considered to outweigh those harms. The benefits are significant in terms of renewable energy, energy security and the climate crisis, and are considered to outweigh those harms identified as reinforced by those recent appeal decisions across the country. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Sarah. As you said, that's the professional opinion, but it is our job to actually weigh those together and to put those forward and agree those forward. I would like now to open the debate on this proposal. I know Marilyn would like to talk, but it's just whether either the proposer or the seconder wanted to talk before we moved on, or go straight into debate. So Marilyn, can I pass it to you?
I'm not sure whether this is all covered because we did talk about tourism and that, but I think it's going to be detrimental to tourism as a whole because it's the businesses such as cafes, pubs and shops. So even though we've talked about, you know, sort of talking about tourists going around rights of way and places like that, you know, sort of through the environment, but it's to do with the cafes, pubs and shops, because it's the detrimental to the businesses there as well. And I just wanted to make that point.
Thank you. Anybody else like to add to the debate? Okay, I'll add one of my points, which is we have constantly looked in within this one that it is the good provided by the good clean energy versus the harm that it may do to produce that energy. One of the things I think we've actually missed within it, I mean, need to consider, this is not a silver bullet or whatever, but it is the fact that the good that the current land produces, that it's not just a sudden increase in good by producing electricity. The food that land produces, which I'm using the save figures, so I can't verify them myself, but which is 26,000 tonnes of wheat, 6,000 tonnes of pulse beans, 5,000 tonnes of oil-soy rape over the 40 years has to be taken as part of equivalent good that land is currently producing. That's just one of the things I wanted to add to the debate. Is there anybody else that would like to come into the debate? Jim.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you for bearing with me at the previous meeting. I do appreciate it. We talk about the quantifying and the benefits. I don't see in the report or anywhere else that the benefits have been quantified and substantiated, and that's where I have a huge problem. As yet, I cannot see where You'll correct me if I'm wrong, but from memory, and it is a long time ago, that we're supposed to take out 40-odd thousand tons per annum of CO2. I can find nowhere where that figure could be substantiated as yet. And so the missing part of the equation that I have is the benefit. And when we say the harm against the benefit, we understand the harm, and we've been through the harm. My problem is I've had to create my own metrics for the benefit. As far as I'm concerned, that's been a difficulty within this paper.
Thank you. Ronan, and then Pip.
Yeah, I think we've got a recommendation. You got proposer and the seconder, and we've debated this for 4 hours at the last meeting, and we've listened to the officers. So I think we just need to put it to the vote and see what's the outcome of that is. Yeah, that's my view. So that's what I would like to see, rather than being here for hours again, going over the same old ground.
I quite agree. Just go to Councillor Allnutt.
Thank you, Chair. I'll try not to speak for 4 hours. I think we do need to make comment, because we've had 4 professional comments from our officers, and if it does go to appeal, we need to have said something about why we are rejecting that professional advice, which I take as being given in good faith and good judgment. Now, there are 4 elements of harm. For myself, I agree that taking one of those and setting it against the possible benefits, subject to what Councillor Mason just said, they're not strong enough. But the 4 taken together, I think, do represent a greater balance with the harm that is given. We know there's harm because the applicant has quite diligently tried to respond to the concerns of the objectors by proposing mitigation. But we heard last time through the questioning of my colleague, Councillor Atherton, that there is some doubt about the effectiveness of the mitigation proposed, namely the hedges, because they are going up and down. Now, I suppose one consideration could be given, that a condition could be placed upon it that they should be much higher than is proposed. That would be one way of dealing with it, I suppose. But the problem with that is that the reason why the mitigation is there is because it's trying to prevent the citizens, the walkers and so on, from casting their eyes across onto the panels. So what we're really doing is saying, well, the best way to not look at these panels is to put a blindfold on, or if I would put it another way, very tall hedges. So the remedy is worse than the disease in this particular case, I would suggest. So I think that is a weakness in the applicant's case. Can I refer you to 8315 on page 19, which specifically relates to the independent LVIA review, and it comes to a point where it says that the applicant and the independent reviewer are in contention, and the word rebuttal is stated. We then have 4 pages of commentary from the officer, which is okay, and then at 8.3.40 on page 22, the paragraph says the key characteristics of the character area would not be significantly altered by the proposed development. Now, that's a value judgment. It's not a piece of evidence, and I accept it's a worthy judgment, but it's one that I disagree with. And I think the objectors generally would. I think the overall impact is that it does significantly alter the significantly affect it in that sense. So I would reiterate my support for the 4 points for the reason I've suggested. There is, I should say, one other point which I thought about, and that is there is reference somewhere. I can't quite see it now with my eyes, but there is reference to the notion that local opinion has been assayed, as it were, and there is a reference to the fact that I can't quite remember where it is, but that there has to be reasonable attempt to make certain that that's been done. Now, the actual evidence of the public opinion is quite slight when you look at it, and I don't think that has been worked through adequately. So I think there are some weaknesses there. So overall, I'm comfortable with the original proposition that I seconded, even though I did want a deferment, which I got by. I'm very thankful, Jim, that you gave me a deferment. Bless you, mate.
Pleasure.
Okay, if there's nobody to take what Ronan said, I'll just pass over to Tom for one final word before we go towards a vote. Sorry, Councillor Gancy, to you.
Just quickly, I note that we refer to the appeal decisions. Are any of those cases actually have the same set of refusals, so we can actually sort of think about, well, there's one case, as Councillor Alner has said, there's one case which has had the same mirrored reasons, and that was upheld. The appeal was upheld.
I haven't got those absolutely to hand of the original decisions that were made by the councils in terms of what was being defended, but we have got all of the appeal decisions that, should you wish to defer, we can circulate all of those appeal decisions to you.
Thank you. Councillor Atherton.
So the first is a question about the process. Should the motion tonight fail, does that automatically mean planning permission is granted, or do we have to vote on that too?
Yep, so if the motion fails, we'll need a new motion of whatever that may be.
Okay, thank you very much. And the second is something that I've just noticed while Councillor Alnett was speaking. In policy EN10, paragraph part 15, it says a bond is in place to cover decommissioning. Now, specifically, it talks about wind energy. And in the Melton local plan, we don't talk about solar energy at all. Should we get to the stage where we need to vote beyond the motion currently in place, can we add that as a condition of any planning approval?
Yeah, it does refer to solar.
No, but this 15 doesn't.
Yeah,
So policy EN10 does talk about solar. Part 15 specifically talks about proposals for wind energy decommissioning.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. In that policy, part 15, in terms of a bond to cover decommissioning, that was written specifically for wind turbines. We have got, I think from memory, it's 2 of those in place, which is done not through a condition, it's done through a Section 106 agreement, which is a legal agreement separate, and where the applicant then essentially lodges money with us that we then keep, and should they not be in a position to decommission that wind turbine, in that case, at the end of its planning consent, then we have the ability to spend money to take it down.
So could we impose that similar thing on this, should we need to, should this motion fail?
I can answer that. From my research, that decommissioning was purely put down for wind turbines, purely because of the impact a wind turbine does and the depth of concrete that they have to build a base for the wind turbine. So I'd look for advice whether that's true, but I don't think the decommissioning on a solar farm is as big as removing a 50-ton block of concrete that's buried 10 feet into the ground, or whatever it is, into the ground.
Thank you, Chair. So members, you've heard the motion that Sarah sort of recapped, and I'll confirm in a moment with Jim, sorry, Councillor Mason and Councillor Ornett, that is the proposed and second motion. They are happy with that. You have heard their the planning officer's professional opinion of whether that would stand up to scrutiny at appeal. I can only give you the governance advice, and the fact that you're being told that by the planning officers in a professional capacity would lead me to say that that is not a robust decision that you are making. This is open to challenge, and therefore, because you are going against the officer opinion without substantiating the reasons further, we may be going into the territory of unreasonable behaviour. The reason I use that term specifically is because that is when costs may become relevant. I do have an example of the cost. I'm not prepared to give it an open forum, but they are significant costs if that decision is not robust, and it would be improper of me not to make you aware of that before you go to the vote.
Thank you, Councillor.
I don't see much substance to that. I do thank Sarah for what she's done. What Sarah's given us tonight is a snippet of the type of things I would have liked to have seen in a well-written report. The portal information, and just to go back to it didn't show you the appeals that went the other way, including an inspector saying it was. But the issue I just want to make quickly is that once one is comfortable with the evidence on the portal, and we've heard tonight, I'm not suggesting that the conclusion in the report is sound. You are making an assumption that the officer's recommendation is sound based on that report, and I am going to the contrary based on the evidence. So I would tone down exactly, what you've. I don't accept the fear that you've just said. I don't accept.
Just a reminder that the officers here just to give us their professional opinion based on their knowledge of the law or planning or whatever. It's not their personal opinion.
I would just add to that, of course, members don't have to take that advice, but we are here as professional officers qualified in our respective areas. You don't have to like the advice. We are not here to tell you what you want to hear. We are here to tell you what we think in our professional opinion. And as I said before, it'd be improper of us not to do that, because if it then did go wrong and there was issues, you would turn around and rightly so say to us, why did you not give us that professional opinion? I would rebut also what you've said. I think the officers are qualified to give their opinion within the reports, and I think that that's what the report does. I think that is a strong, sound decision that comes from that. That is not to say that members have to agree with it in any way, but I would rebut that what you have said, Councillor Pritchett.
Thank you, Tom. In that case then, unless we've got any other comments, I'd like to put forward that the proposal by Councillor Mason, seconded by Councillor Elnett, to the vote. And in the usual manner, I'd like everybody to. Sorry, Councillor Mason, Councillor Elnett, are you happy with the conditions that were read out? Therefore, I'd like to put it to the vote. All those in favour of the proposal? 1, 2, 7, 7. And those against? 2 against. And abstentions? Yeah. And therefore sorry. Yeah. So Councillor Clancy, Councillor Cumbers and Councillor Butcher. Adam, is that okay? But in that case, the motion is passed and the application is refused. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for coming back so many times, and thank you for your time and effort. Thank you very much. Good night. And I call this meeting closed at 6:30.